to be back from vacation. Vacations are so much fun, but if you've, I'm sure you've been on a vacation or had time off or taken a trip somewhere, but one of the things you realize is that you kind of get into vacation mode, don't you? And you almost have to get into vacation mode. So you have to get out of work mode or school mode and go into vacation mode. And we have a lot of different modes in our lives, right? I just mentioned a couple of them, right? There's your day off mode, there's your vacation mode, there's your school mode, shopping mode, and so that your mind is fixed on that. And the reality, though, that I want us to see in this Compassion First series is that there's one mode that we never leave, and that's compassion mode. For us as believers, as followers of Jesus, the one thing, I think one of the biggest things that defines us is that we are all about compassion. If there's a slogan for us, it should be compassion first. Now, I first got this idea for compassion first from one of our elders. About a month ago, we had an opportunity to do a service, right, for someone. It was a really, really difficult situation. A really young guy who had died, and it was just a really bad situation. They had nowhere else to go, no one to turn to, and so the funeral director called me and said, "Hey, could you help us out? Right? Could you have this at your church? Like we're going to do visitation." And we're thinking it's going to be small and it's going to be little. We did not know that we would have 2 days of a packed church, full of people who probably 90% of them would never darken the door of a church. It had nothing to do with church. So it was an opportunity to bring them the gospel. And so whenever I have something like that, I run it by my elders. So I called the elder and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And this was one of these elders. I won't tell you who it was, but he said, "Compassion first." And I thought, yes, that's it. Because that's what I thought. I thought these are people that need help. That no one is going to turn to. No one's going to help them. And how can we do that? See, but if I'm not in compassion mode, I might be in safety mode, or I might be in let's play it safe mode. And that's often what happens, isn't it? Like when you're on vacation, you're not thinking, "Oh, I better make sure I'm compassionate." Did anyone make sure that they had compassion in their heart before they went on vacation? Anybody? Did that make your list of things to bring and things to make sure? Right? You make sure you got your reservations. Right? Let's make sure we got it on the GPS. We make sure all that. But did anyone this summer say compassion? I need to add that first, top of the list. Anyone? No, I'm going on vacation. And sometimes compassion can be an intrusion on your vacation plans, correct? Something happens, somebody needs your help, you're like, "Well, somebody will take care of that because I'm on vacation." It happened to me. I was in, and this is an actual store, I'm not making this up, it's a store that sells moon pies. It's a moon pie store, and they also sell Christian books. So it's a moon pie Christian bookstore. It does exist. Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Google it. It's a thing. So I'm in there because I'm drawn to both, of course. And so I'm looking at Bibles, and this baby starts crying. And I'm thinking, I love to hear the sound of the baby. I look over, and there's Mom, and the little one is doing what a baby does, just a little infant, real small. And she was crying, and she got louder. She got a lot louder. Which, again, it doesn't bother me, but I began to look around at the people in the store by me, and they were getting annoyed, because you could tell they were like shooting daggers. They were shooting that, "Take the kid out," look, right? You better get the kid out of here. Aren't you going to do something? But then I saw an elderly gentleman and his wife go up to this couple, and it was so cool. I was within earshot, so I could hear what they were saying. And he was like, "Yeah, I remember when my kids are all grown, but I remember when they were that age. How awesome. How precious." Right? And he was basically saying, "I remember what it's like." And he took the time, they talked about their trips to Disney, and sometimes it wasn't always easy with a little baby or with a little one. Right? Disney's not always the happiest place on earth. Can I get an amen? Right? If you got little ones, they're hot, they're tired, right? They're stuck in a moon pie Christian bookstore in Tennessee, and that kid doesn't want, that's the last place on earth this kid wants to be. And I had to, it's like God had to kind of grab me and say, "Fred, remember that. That's the last place that kid wants to be." Of course he's going to cry. And he's going to cry louder until someone, brings her to some place, right? Maybe change her diaper, gets her fed, or whatever she needs, right? She's not interested in getting a new Bible, right? That kid can't eat a moon pie. She's too little. And what that gentleman taught me is that he could have just gotten upset and been judgmental and gotten angry, but he went and had compassion. I thought, that's what we do. Now, I don't know what that guy's faith is all about. I don't know if he was there for the moon pies or for the Bibles. I'm not sure. But I do know that he showed compassion. And I thought, yeah, that's the way forward. That's what we got to be, right, as God's people. Shining the light. Not being the person who's sitting there going, man, what's up with that? But the person who steps in and says, you know what, I'm going to interrupt my vacation and my shopping experience, and I'm going to get into compassion mode here. Because as believers, we never step out of that, regardless of where we are or what we're doing. But how many times do we jump out of it? Because we're late for work, am I right? Somebody cuts you off. Are you compassionate in that moment? Or how about this one? I'm going to challenge you on this because this is really hard for me. You're in that line of construction traffic, okay? Construction traffic. 2 miles back was the gigantic lighted sign, right, that's about as big as this wall, that says, right lane closed, 2 miles, right, and then there's another one, right, 1.5 miles, a mile, 500 feet, whatever, right, and it's clearly letting you know. Now, what happens? There's a whole group of people, and let's be honest, we equate them with the devil because they did not read the sign. So they're either extremely illiterate, should have no business on the road. Isn't that what goes through our mind? Didn't you see the sign? Like seriously, you're cutting in at the last moment? I was a good boy. I jumped in at mile 1.5. You know, yay me. I should get an award for that. Right? But I search my heart and I go, that's what's going through my mind. And how ridiculous. And almost always, here's what makes it even worse, is that somebody at mile 1.5 let you in and had compassion on you. It might seem like a small thing, but when you're stressed out and you're trying to drive and you need to get over, do we just go, yeah, come on in? But we see what I'm saying? We jump right out of compassion mode. Now, how did Jesus see people? Look at Matthew 9. Matthew 9 begins with Jesus healing a guy who was demon-possessed, right? Matthew 9, verse 32. They're all going out, and there's a man who was brought to Jesus who was demon-possessed. This shows me that the people who brought him were in compassion mode, right? He needs Jesus. Because no one else wants to touch him with a 10-foot pole, right? And if you think any differently, what I want you to run the scenario that a dude who is demon-possessed moves in 4 doors down. I'll give you 4 doors, not 2 doors. But 4 doors down is a guy who you know is demon-possessed. Who wants to still live in that neighborhood? Right? It's hard to have compassion, isn't it? Because I know something about folks that are demon-possessed, and that is, again, nobody wants to touch them with a 10-foot pole. And I'd be willing to bet that most of the people who were there, especially the Pharisees, thought that was that guy's fault. What kind of wickedness did he do? What did he invite into his life? What did his parents do? Sin back then was very much, right, especially blindness or any kind of infirmities. Really, people were like, he did something to make that happen. And it makes me wonder how I think of people, and Deb just got it right. It's easy to have compassion on somebody, right, who is really hurting. They're in the hospital, right? It's easy to have compassion on them. Right? Maybe they have a disease they didn't ask for. It gets much harder when someone didn't take care of themselves. Am I right? You just know, like they ignored all the doctor's orders, right? They ignored their parents' good teaching and wound up getting involved with drug abuse, partied too much, ignored what the world says they should do or God says that they should do. And so, hey, do they get compassion? Do they? Right? The demon-possessed man, I'm sure, felt no compassion from anyone. And Jesus drives out the demon, and he's able to speak now. He wasn't able to before, but now he's able to speak. And the crowd is amazed. And they're like, we haven't seen this ever in the kingdom of God. Moses didn't do this. Right? Moses didn't make people, didn't drive out demons. He didn't do these kinds of things. And so what it means, and I don't know that they got all this, but really, we look back, and that means God's here. God's the only one who can do this. This is significant. This is huge. And the crowds get it, but the Pharisees don't. The guys who are so versed in Scripture, who know all of this, they know how to fast, they know how to do the temple service and chant, and they can do all of that stuff, and they have the right gear with all the right tassels and all the right hat things, and right, they got all of that perfect. And that's okay, and they're great at it, but they're missing compassion. Because their response is by the prince of demons, he drives out demons. They don't see it as a God thing, they see it as a devil thing. Imagine that. Jesus delivering this man from the bondage of Satan himself, and they chalk it up to Satan. Are you tracking with that? Like the church pastor says, no, that's the devil working. Even though that man is free. Because God freed him. Talk about blindness. You want to talk about getting everything right but what matters. See, and that's what I want us to the warning is for me. I can get it all right, but what did Paul say? If I can fathom all mysteries, right? If I can speak like angels, if I can do all these things, but if I have not what? Love, you know it, 1 Corinthians 13. But if I have not love, I'm what? I'm just going to paraphrase, Fred Hoover paraphrase. I am nothing but a loud bunch of noise. I'm a clanging cymbal, I'm just a bunch of noise. Because what I really need is love. And here's what I want us to look at. This week we're going to look at the fact that we have had compassion on us. And what happens is in those moments we forget. Right? We forget the guy who let us in. We forget that the person who took care of us. We forget about that person who, when our baby was crying, helped us. And we still look down at another person, right? When we struggle as teenagers, we forget God's grace, forget his love. So Jesus is going through the towns, right? He is showing compassion. He is proclaiming the good news of the kingdom. He is healing every disease and sickness. And as he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. That word for compassion is similar to like back then, they saw the heart as a seat of emotions, right? We feel this that way, don't we? My heart's not in it, or something like that. This doesn't deal so much with the heart. There's a different word for heart in Greek, but the word here for it's similar to a word that means, that talks about your guts, your innards. Have you ever used the phrase, I got a gut feeling about that? What's going in your mind, in your heart, in your life when you have a gut feeling about something? When you have a guttural reaction to something? That means that all of you is moved by it. You cannot ignore it. It is not something that you can just blow off and pretend it's not there. Your very being just starts to churn, and you're like, man, this cannot be. That's what Jesus was doing. He's like, look, these people are harassed. They are helpless. In other words, they're getting it from all sides. They're being attacked from all fronts, and they've got nowhere to turn. They've got no one that's going to help them. He's just demonstrated how the religious guys are going to deal with them. You got a problem? Oh, you should probably deal with that problem. You got stuff falling off. You have leprosy. You get yourself cleaned up, and then we'll let you in the temple because there's health issues, and we can't really have you here. You see? They got nobody. And Jesus says, I'm the one. I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to heal them. I'm going to have compassion on them. I'm going to tell them that they needed both. Notice he preaches the good news of the kingdom. The kingdom of God is here. God is here. Jesus is here not to condemn, not to rub their noses in it. And he dealt with some pretty sinful people, didn't he? Time after time. The guys on his team were guys who made horrible life decisions. Take some time. Look at the history of the 12 disciples when you go home. Not a whole lot of real churchy guys in that group. No one that would make our call is certainly. Oh yeah, he cheats people. Great. Let's sign him up. Let's put him in charge of the finances. Let's do that. Right? I mean, that's who these guys were. But he has compassion. Because he's into changing lives. and helping, right? And so he brings this good news that God is here. The kingdom of God is here. And he's going to heal, and he's going to bring wholeness, and he's going to bring transformation. That's what he is there. They are sheep without a shepherd, and the good shepherd is there. In fact, he doesn't just stop there. He realizes, hey, this is going to be a whole movement. Because it's this harvest that is plentiful. There's no end to the needs that are out there. So let's pray to send out workers into the harvest field. So what I want you to do is to pray. Not just pray that someone else goes, but that God would keep you in compassion mode as you go. That you would be like that guy in the Moon Pie Christian bookstore and be there in the midst when everyone else is looking down, right? When you're at school and everyone's making fun of that kid who walks weird, who talks different, and who has issues, and everybody wants to make fun of his weakness. Could you be Jesus to him? Or to her? The one that no one wants anything to do with? Everybody looks at it and goes, oh man, that's a weird kid. Let's love the weird kid. And here's why. Because you're the weird kid. Right? Without Jesus, you're him. Without him, you got nothing. You're harassed, you're helpless, you're without sheep, without a shepherd. That's you without him. But I'm pleading with you this morning to realize that you have him. You have him. He saw you in your weakness. He saw you dead. He saw you unable to go to him. He saw you unable to do anything and came and died for you and rose for you and gave you the kingdom. And he's brought you an amazing, amazing amount of compassion. So compassion mode is not something that we drum up. It's something he's brought us into. Because he's all about compassion. He's the father, right, of all compassion. And as Corinthians said, he comforts us so that we can comfort others. With what? With the comfort that we receive from him. The love and mercy that you receive from him and continue to receive from him each and every day. Because the last thing I want to talk about here is who's perfect? Anybody? Anybody never messed up? There's none of us. And I can do that week after week, and I'm never getting anyone to raise their hand. Forgiven, yeah. Every hand should go up. Loved, yeah. God give me compassion. Continues to give me compassion. And see, what I want to have happen is in those moments when you want to jump out of compassion mode, I want you to not be guilty. I want you to remember the love, the amazing love of Jesus in that moment for you. And to say, I want that person to have it. In Jesus' name. Amen.